Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us again on this cool, snowy here in Ottawa Friday morning. It's exciting to see some faces joining us. Thanks for making this space. I'm so excited to be with you on this Friday morning from Carleton and share some more information. So to get us started, I'll do a bit of a welcome and some housekeeping as we kind of let some more folks join us this morning, which will be really nice to get us going. I will start by acknowledging that this session is being recorded so that we can post it later for folks who aren't able to join us at this specific time. So if you're not comfortable being a part of the recording, that's totally fine. You can turn your camera off and you won't be captured that way. If you have questions, you're welcome to use the chat at any time. We have staff in the chat monitoring those questions, as well as we'll do some live Q&A as we go. So definitely feel free, take advantage of those resources and get connected. We're here today so that you can get your questions answered, so that you can feel confident that you have the knowledge that you need to serve your students. And we're really here to help support you because you're the ones who provide a lot of the support to your students. So whatever we can do to help make that easier is exactly what we're here for. So really to get us started, I'll introduce myself. I always forget to do this at the start of every session. My name is Caitlin Anderson, and I'm the National Recruitment Officer here at Carleton University, really here to help. My role is to provide resources and connect students to make sure that they have the information and knowledge that they need to be successful as they start to make these decisions. And I know this time of year is just crazy. And they're looking towards that January 13th OUAC deadline, and we are right on track with that. I know that they have lots of questions coming in, and so we're here to help them through that process. And I'll outline some of the events that we have upcoming at the end of our session today. But as you can see on the screen, we have two upcoming events that I love to highlight at this time of year. The first is our family night. That's upcoming on Thursday, December 9th. And then we also have another session for guidance counselors, just a Q&A, an open session, no formal presentations, on Friday, December the 10th, for all of those last minute questions that come in December when students are rushing to meet that deadline. Before we get started today, I'd like to do two things. First, I'd like to make some space to acknowledge the location of Carleton University. Carleton is located in Ottawa on the traditional and unceded territories of the Algonquin Nation. This acknowledgement is important for us in acknowledging that we are privileged to learn, to grow, to work, and to play on this beautiful land. And our connections with the Indigenous communities are something that we are continually working and growing on, so that we can ensure that Indigenous students are welcomed into our environment and that we are continually aware of Indigenous ways of knowing and how we can incorporate those into the classroom. An exciting development that I'd love to share with you is actually introducing you to a new member of our team. So Kate, if you want to pop on the screen, I will let you introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you do here at Carleton.
Kwe, Kate Nidishnikas, Pikwakanagan Donjaba, Anishnavi Kwe. So, hi, my name is Kate. I am from Pikwakanagan First Nations, or more locally known as Golden Lake. I'm a First Nation woman, and I work here at Carleton as the Indigenous Recruitment Coordinator. So, if you have any Indigenous students who are looking to come into post-secondary, I will be your contact here at Carleton. I'm also part of the APSIP Tour, which is a Canada-wide Aboriginal post-secondary information support system where Indigenous students can come and learn about all sorts of different colleges and universities across Canada and what they have to offer and how they support Indigenous students.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. And I know you'll pop your email there in the chat so that our guidance counselors can connect students to you, or they can reach out to you if they have any questions. So Kate will pop her email in there right now so that you have it. You can also reach out to our office anytime, and we're happy to connect you with Kate if you lose her email. But she'll pop it in there so you can take a quick screenshot or copy that down, which will be great. Thank you so much for introducing yourself, Kate. I'm excited because now I get to hand it off. A lot of what you're here for this morning is an update on what's happening in admissions at Carleton, and I'm excited to hand you over to Jen Sugar, our Director of Admissions, who will provide that update for you. Over to you, Jen.
Thanks, Caitlin. Good morning, everybody. It's so great to see everybody, even though you're all just little smarties with initials in front of my face, but it's great to connect with you. I wanted to provide a little bit of an update on sort of where we're at in regard to admissions. I know quite a few of you attended the last session that we held, and so there's not too much of a difference between what I said last time and what I'm going to say this morning. But the one new development that has happened, for those of you who have looked at the Globe and Mail this morning, you'll see that there's an article in the Globe that talks about the ministry mandating that everybody go back to semesters for the winter. And for us, that was the biggest question, actually. That was one of the biggest questions that we were dealing with, was whether there were going to be some schools and some boards that were going to be remaining in the quadmester system for winter. And so with that announcement, we'll see if everybody kind of follows that direction or not. That'll be the next sort of question. But with that announcement, it takes away a lot of the stresses and strains that we dealt with last semester, where we had students who were trying to finish needed grade 12 courses in their final quad. For most students, that was calculus and vectors and physics. And so if in fact we are moving to a world where we are going to do a true winter semester, where students will return to that system, then what we're going to go back to is the traditional sort of distribution of grades and the traditional rounds of offers that we would normally do. And so I'll just go through that really briefly. What that looks like for us is that we receive grades at 4 different times during the year. We have grades now. So for students who are applying to us now, we see their grade 11 grades, and that's really what we look at. We don't really take note of any midterm grade 12s that we're receiving right now in November. Those are not grades that we traditionally use in order to make offers of admission. So right now for us, if we're making well, we haven't started offers yet, but if we were to make offers right now, it would be based only on grade 11s. We get grades again in February when they're distributed after the first semester. We get them in April as midterm second semester grades, and we get them at the end of the year. And at each of those points, what we do is we calculate admission averages for students, and we assess, based on the averages that we're using at that moment, whether they're eligible for an offer of admission. When I say that we calculate averages, it's important to know that we actually calculate 2 averages for our students. So we calculate both an overall average, and we also calculate a prerequisite average. And so when you have your students and they're looking through the undergraduate view book, which is here like this, and they're on those back pages and they're looking at the averages, it's important to point out to them that they'll need that as an overall average, and they'll also need that as a prerequisite average. So when they look at the 2 or 3 or 4 courses that are prerequisites for the program, they should also be hitting that overall average with those courses as well. So that's just something to know. The other thing to note about sort of timing of offers that's always really important, and I'll just say that we're so grateful that the guidance counselors are back in the schools and talking to students on a daily basis, because, you know, it's just wonderful for them to have that touch point and for them to have that contact. But one thing that we ask for you to help us kind of remind students is that the timing of offers really depends a lot on the program that they're applying to. And so I think a lot of students get really wrapped up in the idea of applying early and getting an early offer. But what we need to remember is that there are programs for which we might be waiting for prerequisite grades. And then there are also a whole host of programs that have individual separate admission requirements. They have supplementary admission requirements like portfolios or auditions or supplementary information. And those things are typically reviewed in March. And so because those things are only reviewed in March, those offers are only going to go out for those programs in March and April. And so, you know, there may be students for programs outside of the ones that I'm talking about that could get early offers in January or February, but it's important to just help students understand that nuance, that not every program is the same and not every program is going to get an early offer. For the question in the chat about the Quebec CEGEP timeline, generally we will get grades for the first half of the Quebec CEGEP year, usually around February. They're sort of fully distributed at that point. And for most students, as long as they have high enough averages, we're able to make some conditional offers, as long as we can see their registration in the second part, in the courses in the second part of the year. So the timeline is similar, but not quite exactly the same, because we don't get grades from the CEGEPs as often as we get from the high schools. So the other thing that I'd like to just kind of touch on is something I met with my counterparts yesterday and the day before, actually. And one of the things that we were all noticing is sort of a collective, maybe I'll say panic, that students are under the impression that because we are making offers early, so because we'll start sending offers in December or January or February, that it means that programs are going to close in December, January, or February. So we have started getting some calls from parents and from students saying, you know, if I don't have an offer by December, it means that I'm locked out. I'm locked out of the program. And I think it's important for us to try to communicate to students that mid-January deadline, that's there for a reason. And as long as they apply by that deadline, their application will be given due consideration. And it's okay for them to take time over the holiday break to sit down and make their choices and do their research and talk to their families and then submit their application by the deadline. They don't need to have their application in November or December. If they're ready, it's great. But we definitely don't want to create a lot of panic out there. There's already enough anxiety, so we don't want to create more. So if you could help us kind of tamp that down, that would be great. In terms of the question in the chat, the percentage of total offers released in each round, when we do offers, let's say in December before we break for the holidays, usually it's a very, very small number. We're really doing it almost to test the system, to make sure our letters are printing correctly and that everything's working. So it's a very, very small number. Our two biggest rounds are the February grade distribution and April. So I'd say, you know, the vast majority of offers are going to go out in those two rounds. And so that's really between those two rounds, that's when probably the majority of students can expect their offer. For the early rounds, it's usually very high achieving students. And for programs that are for students who are achieving or receiving offers on final grades, it's usually for the things that are still open and where it's okay for us to wait for final grades, and where students maybe had averages that were too low up until that point, and then we were able to get them an offer on finals. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a sense of the ratios. The other thing that I'd like to just kind of mention again, which I mentioned last time we all met, was that in past years, for those of you who are experienced at this whole cycle type of thing, we would always stop assessing for scholarship on midterm second semester grades. So in that April grade distribution, that would be the last time we would calculate an average for the purposes of scholarship. But what we've done during the pandemic and what we will continue doing this year is we will be reassessing students on their final grades as well. And so the way Carleton works is we will send an offer as soon as the student is eligible. But even after we've sent the offer, we recalculate the scholarship offer and the scholarship average. And if at any point the student is eligible for a new and improved scholarship based on their average, we will send them the higher amount. We never reduce the scholarship amount, we only increase it. And so the idea that we are calculating averages all the way up until final is only really a benefit to the student, and it just helps them kind of, again, have a little bit less anxiety as they're working through the cycle. In terms of helping your students as they're making their choices. Please just also help them remember that when they have multiple choices at Carleton, to please rank their first choice first. Sometimes they don't pay attention to the choice, but what students need to remember is that Carleton only issues one offer at a time. So we will always issue an offer for the first choice program, and then we will tell the student if they're eligible for their second and third choice program. So we're not sending offers 2 and 3 different offers. We're sending one and then telling them whether they're eligible. If they change their mind, they can always contact us, and we will help them figure out how to re-rank their choices depending on the time of year. The instructions are different, and once they re-rank their choices, they will be sent a brand new offer for that new first program choice. So I think that gives you a little bit of an outline. Thank you very much for the questions in the chat. But if there are any more questions, feel free to either type them in the chat, or of course you can unmute your mic and just shout at me. That's okay too. No questions. Either people haven't had enough coffee or that was just the perfect update. So in terms of the first round of offers, I'm assuming that you mean based on grade 11 grades. And so if we're doing a calculation based on grade 11, we generally use 4 grade 11 grades. And the averages that we use are much, much higher. And when we're looking for prerequisite courses, we're always reaching back to those grade 11 courses that match the prerequisite courses that we need for the program. Thanks, Troy. In terms of the programs having significant increases, I can tell you what we noticed this past year. So in terms of what we noticed, this past year in terms of popularity, one of the things that we noticed was that basically anything that touched on health was extremely popular. And we expect that to continue. So that was our Bachelor of Health Science, basically almost anything with biology in it. All of those programs were extremely popular, so we expect that to continue. We think that's obviously related to the pandemic and health issues being front of mind for everyone, but particularly our students. We're also noticing that computer-related programs in general are extremely popular, and that's everything from the Bachelor of Computer Science to software and computer systems engineering, information technology programs, just very, very popular all the way around. There are 4 streams of engineering that we refer to here as the Fantastic Four that are consistently popular every year, have very high admission averages, and those are aerospace, mechanical, biomedical mechanical, and sustainable and renewable energy engineering. With one of the streams, there's one stream that's related to mechanical engineering, and so that particular stream of sustainable and renewable energy engineering is typically very popular. So those are the ones that come to mind as having been very popular and that we expect to be very popular. The other thing to note is that our Bachelor of Commerce program had a massive increase this year. It is extremely popular. We are bringing in so many students into the Bachelor of Commerce program, so there's a ton of interest there as well. So those are just some notes. So the next question is, for the Bachelor of Humanities, should a student complete the supplemental irrespective of their grades? I believe it's only required for students who have an average less than 80. When and how should they calculate their average to decide whether they'll need to complete the supplemental? So I think really what to do is to help. I'd say if a student is kind of skating around in the low 80s, then they may want to do that just as a precautionary measure. But for a student who has done fairly well in grade 11, and who looks to be on a strong path so far in their grade 12 year. And they're sort of working in sort of that mid to high 80s range, then I'd say they can probably let their grades stand. It's really for the students who are kind of in that 81, 82 range, where it might kind of go a bit sideways during the year, that I would say go ahead and do the supplemental in order to make sure that they're in that running if their average does turn out to be less than 80. Thank you very much for the questions. These are all great. I'll wait to see if there are any more. I know sometimes it takes a little bit of time to actually type out your questions, so we'll give you a few seconds to do that. So for the first round, so again, it depends on what you mean by the first round, Paula. But if you mean the offers that we're going to be sending when we get started with offers in December, those will typically be grade 11 grades and any final grade 12s that students will be, that students are carrying with them. So for students who reached ahead and are holding some grade 12, some completed grade 12 grades, we of course use those in the average as well. So if you didn't mean that early round, if you mean the February round, maybe just pop that in the chat and then I'll answer that question too. Yeah, top 4, grade 11 and 12, exactly, December round, including prerequisites. Yep. And remember that the averages are going to be higher at that point. And also another thing to remind, of course, students, yes, I know we hear from your hyper students, we know this. But the thing to remind students, of course, is that all of these offers are conditional, right? We make offers based on high grade 11s because statistically we've looked at what the results are and we've made, and we make basically, we're making bets that students who do extremely well in grade 11 are going to do extremely well in grade 12. And statistically, that does bear out. But all of these offers are conditional. They're conditional based on how students perform in grade 12. And so, even though they might be holding an early offer, they cannot take their hands off the wheel. They must still do well in their grade 12 year, and they have to be able to maintain their offer. So all of that is really good information to sort of pass on to them, because I think sometimes they think once they're holding it, they're done. And they're so not done. Okay. So I don't, no, that depends. So maintaining the offer, the average that they need to maintain is very individual depending on the program. When they get their offer, they get a whole bunch of information about what it will take to maintain their offer in their program. Individual course grades, plus the overall average, and what they need to maintain. So the students will be sent that. They just have to actually read it, which we know sometimes is questionable. Okay.
Awesome. Well, those have been some great questions. Thanks so much, Jen, for your time. And don't worry if you have some other questions that come up or you are working on typing them out. We're here, we'll keep answering those. I think what we'll do for now is we'll shift gears a little bit into the next section of our morning, which is super exciting, and I'm excited to share. We are not only providing admissions updates this morning, but we wanted to highlight a few important programs to you as you continue to have these conversations with your students, or you're looking for programs of interest, or just programs that have had some changes over the last few years. We'll be highlighting a few of those programs this morning. So this morning we'll hear from our Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, we'll hear from our Enriched support program, and we'll also hear from the Sprott School of Business. So what we'll do is we can get started with our Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. So this morning, presenting, we have Dr. Janet Mantler, and she's also accompanied here in the chat by Jessie McClintock. So they'll be here to help answer questions on FAS. Janet, did you want me to share your presentation on my end?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
That's great.
I'll get that
Appreciate
started.
that. Okay. Okay, excellent. Thanks. Okay, thanks everyone for being here today. Again, as Caitlin nicely introduced, I'm from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at Carleton University. I'm in the role of Associate Dean this year. My home institution is psychology, and I study in particular the effects of work and stress on personal health. Next slide. Okay, so what I want to talk to you today about is the undeclared option in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. So students right now, I know because I have a child in grade 12 who is going through all of this. They're looking at all the programs and they're thinking there's so many things to do and how do you decide and where do you go? And so we actually have that option for students who don't know what they want to do or who want to explore their options as they go through. And so they can choose to come into Carleton as an undeclared student. That just means that they're a student at Carleton, they can take all the courses and they have some time to think about what they want to do. So the Undeclared program is an entrance program. So it's for students coming into Carleton in their first year. You can't declare a major and then decide to undeclare and have no major. So it's an entrance program for those coming in. So when a student comes in as an undeclared student, they take 3 to 4 courses in interesting areas. We want to make sure that they take a span of courses that will help them decide where they want to go or how they want to combine their courses. In the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, we have 27 majors and 19 minors. So there's a lot of exploration they can do and a lot of ways they can combine their courses. And so we want to have them take those 3 or 4 entry-level courses so that they can complete a degree in 4 years. Now we know a lot of students take 5 years to complete a degree, but if we can get them to take a good selection of courses in 4 years, that's then they can finish in good selection of courses in their first year, they can finish in 4 years. Okay. So an undeclared student can declare their major anytime after they receive their offer, right up until the end of April of their first year. So that's a good lot of time. And during that time, they have access to advisors and special guidance programming. Career Services does a lot of workshops with our students. They have the Associate Dean working with them. They have other people in the Associate Dean or in the Dean's office that work with them. And in fact, we have Jesse McClintock here today, as Caitlin said, who will also be available to help people. He's got a career or a background. Actually, he was telling me last night that he came into Carleton as well as an undeclared student and finished in degree and then went on to get his master's degree in counseling psychology. So he definitely is a handy person to talk to if you have any questions about that. Okay, and we also have one other thing is when students apply to Carleton and they may not meet the requirements for a particular program, then they can be offered a spot as an undeclared student. So that's a good thing to tell your students too. Again, if there's one of those programs that they really want, but they also really want to go to Carleton, there are other ways to get in. Okay, next slide. So if you're thinking about how to help your students decide what program they want, if they are undeclared or otherwise, in FAST, we have some spotlight videos that you can direct your students to watch, and they're videos with students in them that talk about their program. We also have some new major maps that talk about, they're not all there, but we have, I think, 7 or 8 major maps that talk about what's expected in each program and what students are expected to do in first year, second year, third year, fourth year, both in class and external to class. And I have given a link for some more information on the undeclared major. Next slide. Now, I promise to spend only 1 minute on these next 2 slides. I want to talk about ways that students can think about the environment right now and in FAST. For many of us, the environment is uppermost in our minds as we're thinking about all the floods and the rain in BC. So next slide. Can we have the next slide? Thanks. And so there are lots of ways to study the environment in Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. You can have your students study the causes and consequences of climate change in geography, environmental studies, and geomatics. I have heard from students that they say everyone wants to go into environmental studies, and so they figure it's going to be too difficult to get into, so they're going to go for their option B. And I want to say that given how important this topic is to us and our world, environmental studies is certainly going to be accommodating as much as they can. So definitely encourage your students to apply there. There's also things like the Indigenous ecological ways of knowing, land-based courses and so forth that through the School of Indigenous and Canadian Studies. Students can study climate change and justice and through their minor in environmental and climate change humanities. And we can talk about preserving cultural heritage resources through a minor in heritage conservation. There are lots and lots of ways that you can study the environment through arts and social sciences. And even in my own home program of psychology, we have new courses in psychology and the environment, and including ways to think about behavior change so that we are all becoming more environmentally aware. Okay, I think that was my 5 minutes. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Janet. It's great to hear all the things that are happening in FAST and the opportunities for students, and to know that, yeah, if they don't know right now, that it's okay that they don't know, and there's opportunities to continue those conversations. And yeah, Elodie, this presentation is recorded, so the presentations of the PowerPoints will be available that way. And I'll also post a number of the links in the chat so that you can copy those down if there's relevant information for your students. But thank you so much, Janet. Next up, I'm excited to introduce our Enriched support program. So we have Susan Burho with us here this morning, who will be sharing some more information about the Enriched support program, which is an alternative option for students considering university. So Susan, I'll hand things over to you. Again, if you'd like me to share a presentation, just let me know. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Unmute myself. Thanks, Caitlin. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Nice to join you all. Maybe I will get you to share the presentation for me, Caitlin. That would be handy. Thank you. So I'm hopeful that many of you have already heard of the Enriched Support Program. The slides I'm going to share today, I'm going to post to our guidance website, and I've just popped that into the chat so that you can have a look. The highlights that I'll hit today are all there on that guidance counselor website. If you want to go to the next slide, Caitlin, that would be great. So what is the Enriched Support Program? Really, the program is designed for students whose grades or perhaps their pattern of courses might not represent their full potential. So we have students applying to us who say, you know, their average in grade 12 suffered for any number of reasons, including the pandemic. You know, sometimes students have a pathway that they've decided on and they think that they're college bound, and then you know they go on that college route and think, oh, I don't know if that was the right path for me, and they want to make a change, and it can be hard to get all of the U&M level courses that you need if you're switching midway through your high school career. So our program really exists for those students who may need a second chance at university. What our program offers is access to first-year courses that students can come in. They're taking a reduced course load, they're getting support with their courses, and that gives them a pathway to qualifying for any number of programs. We have pathways into arts and social sciences, into business, engineering, computer science, and science programs at Carlton. We also have a sister program called the Indigenous Enriched Support Program. Now that program is experiencing some changes this year as it's moving into our Center for Indigenous Initiatives. So I look forward to seeing how that's going to unfold over the course of the year. But if you have Indigenous students, I would definitely recommend that program for them. Next slide, please, Caitlin. So when students come in the program, it looks something like this in terms of what they register in. They're taking 3 first-year courses as opposed to 5, but they're also getting workshops built into their schedule, and those are academic support workshops that are specific to the courses that they're enrolled in. So it's study skills and support, but it's contextualized study skills. So it applies to the courses that they're enrolled in. So if they're coming in through our science stream, let's say, they'll be enrolled in a first year chemistry course, and then they'll have a workshop that supports them in chemistry or psychology or sociology or whatever course that they're enrolled in. And those courses are really meant to be transition support to introduce them to the academic skills required and habits required for success at university. It also helps them to structure that time because, as you know, one of the big shifts coming into university is that shift to independent learning. And those workshops are helping students to organize that time where they're expected to do that independent learning. We have individual academic advisors who work with them on sort of choosing their pathway and the degree that they want to go into, and one-on-one support in terms of academic coaching. Next slide, please, Caitlin. So applications. Students can apply to our program at any stage. They can apply now, they can wait to apply later when they've heard back from admissions about whether or not their application's been successful. One application won't affect another, so they don't have to worry about, say, jeopardizing an offer from admissions if admissions sees that they've got into ESP. You know, we're all about getting them, you know, on their path. So, you know, it's not a problem to switch from one to another. Students apply to our program directly as opposed to through the Ontario University Application Centre's website. And that's because we're looking at more than just their grades. So we're asking them to put together a portfolio that shows them more about their experience, their background, their any of the struggles that they experienced in high school. This is their chance to share their story and tell us about the context for the grades that we see, the transcript that we see. We also ask for letters of reference, so either from a couple teachers or a teacher and a guidance counselor, people who can speak to their potential to do well, given an opportunity. There's an application fee of $65. The application deadline right now, I think on our website, if you look, it says June 1st and that says June 30th in the slide. To be frank, we're admitting students well up until August most years. So those application deadlines are quite flexible. It's because a lot of students don't even find out that we exist until they get turned down by Carleton. But I will say that students don't have to apply through the UAC system to Carleton to apply to our program. So sometimes students know that they don't have the right number of UNM level courses and they're not going to qualify for university directly, then ours might be an alternative pathway that they can consider, and there's no need to do the UAC application as well if that circumstance applies. We also admit students in the winter semester, so the deadline for that right now has just passed November 15th, but it's been extended as well until December. Next slide, please, Caitlin. So the minimum academic requirements, you'll see this table on our guidance counselor website as well that I put into chat. Students do need to be in a position to graduate. They don't have to have all of their UNM level courses, 6 of those. They only have to have half of their grade 12 courses, so at least 3 of their grade 12 courses at the UNM level. And then the others can be any of the other streams. For arts and social sciences, we recommend the 4U English, and then you'll see the prerequisite course requirements listed for the other streams. And that's because they're going to be coming in and taking first year courses in those fields, so they really do have to be prepared. And we usually say a minimum of 60 in those prerequisite subjects. And final slide, Caitlin. So our guidance counselor website that I've popped into chat there has the how to apply, how to submit a reference, the application deadlines, the minimum academic requirements, and also the opportunity to ask a student ambassador to come and virtually visit your school to talk about our program. So if you have a group of students that you think might benefit, or even just one student that you think might benefit from the program, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to send someone to talk to those students and share a bit about their experience as a student coming through the program. So that's it. That's all that I've got. Thank you for listening. And I've put my email address in there as well. So please do feel free to reach out to me if you do have any questions. And I'm happy to answer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. ESP is always an exciting program to hear about, and it's great to share because I'm sure there are students that you think of when you hear of programs like this, and we want to make sure that they know that it's an option and that Carleton is still here, and that there are alternative ways to get into university. So thanks so much for sharing. If any folks have any questions, feel free to continue to use the chat. We're here to help answer those.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. So we're through 2 of our programs. We have one last one, and I hope that this is also something that'll be super helpful and relevant for you. As Jen mentioned earlier this morning, we've seen a big increase in popularity in our business programs, especially our Bachelor of Commerce. And so this morning we have Dr. Howard Nemiroff, the Associate Dean, and Rhonda Kelly, one of our recruitment officers and first-year advisors in the Sprott School of Business, here to chat about the program and some alternative pathways for admission to the commerce program as well. So over to you, Howard.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Good morning, everybody. And Caitlin, I just literally 2 minutes ago sent you my slide deck, just in case I'm unable to share. I don't have much to actually show everybody via slide deck, but I did want to, if I can, let's just see if this works. And of course it doesn't. Well, I'll tell you everything then anyway. Very quickly. It's always technology stuff. Oh, there we go. Thank you so much, Caitlin. She's amazing. So this is me, Howard Nemiroff. I'm the Associate Dean of the Undergraduate Programs at Sprott. I wanted to talk a little bit about the alternative pathway, specifically because it dovetails really nicely off of what Susan was just presenting with regard to the Enriched support program. And that is, we are looking at an alternative pathway into the Sprott School of Business that kind of straddles the ESP and the formal BCom application or BIB application. And that is specifically for students who have a story to tell that is above and beyond what their marks might in fact indicate. So for students who have perhaps circumstances or issues that have restricted their ability to get the marks that they think support their case for being accepted to the business school, we're creating a pathway for those students to show us what you got, kind of thing. So if I can, next slide, Caitlin. There we go. If we were live, you'd all be in this building listening to me right now. This is our new building. It opened up in August. I just wanted to show everybody that just because I'm promoting the new building, and it's gorgeous and it's amazing and it's full of light and full of space and great for collaborative and networking opportunities. And it's got a bridgehead on the main floor. So that's a lot of fun. I just wanted to show you that really quickly. Next slide, please. And this is the one that I wanted to focus on. So our 2 programs, Bachelor of Commerce, Bachelor of International Business. As hopefully you all know, they're both honors programs, both 4-year programs. They both have the standard admissions pathway, which is specifically you need 6 U/M courses, which include 4U English, Advanced Functions, Calculus and Vectors, as do most business schools throughout Canada in terms of getting in. However, last year we included an option 2, which you see right below, which says that if you don't have calculus for various reasons, and that was specifically pandemic related, but it's now being extended to beyond pandemic, we have created the equivalent to a calculus high school math course at Carleton that students can get conditionally accepted into the business school, take math with us in that first semester if they pass math, along with access to other BCom courses that we would let them gain access to. They would then automatically and seamlessly continue on in January as BCom students. So that's option 2, which existed last year. But if you look over to the right of the screen in red, I wish I made it more bold, but in red, option 3 is our new alternative pathway, which, as I said, straddles the ESP and the, I guess, the other 2 options that you see on the left. And that is for students who do not meet the minimum grade or math requirements. Specifically, what we would be looking for here would be similar to the ESP, a personal statement essay. But this personal statement essay, you see the question that we're going to be asking the students below. In your own words, if your high school performance and or courses do not represent your potential, tell us why you think you would be successful at Sprott. So what we're looking for here is students who, for various reasons, perhaps familial, perhaps financial, circumstances that are typically beyond their control, they've made a mistake, they've messed up somewhere, whatever it might be, but they've got that spark. Can they show it to us? And if they can show it to us in the form of an essay, and we like what we see, we would then invite them for a video interview. There's a cost to the video interview. I believe it's $50, Rhonda, if I'm not mistaken. A cost to the video interview. Once they complete the video interview, and we have questions there on leadership, on creativity, and the like, to get a sense of whom they really are from a business perspective. And if they can articulate and they can present themselves in that environment, then we would let them into the business school that way. So it's a new option that we're exploring. We hope to see, as I said, those students who are, for lack of a better term, diamonds in the rough, if I could put it that way, who for various reasons were unable to show us through their grades that they do have what it takes to make it in the business school. So I wanted to present that to you all here. I do have a couple of other slides that we don't need to get into, which just actually goes through the two programs. But Rhonda and I are available to answer any questions that any of you might have afterward, should you want to explore the two programs. So with that, back to you, Caitlin.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's an exciting opportunity for a different pathway for those who maybe hadn't thought about business or encountered some challenges. And my colleague Carly has posted in the chat a link to the website that has all of those details for your students. So if there's someone that you're thinking of specifically when you think of these challenges, that would be a great business student, definitely refer them there, or refer them to Rhonda to continue the conversation about what things could look like in the future. The Sprout School of Business is really helpful to be there to have those conversations and to answer those questions so that we can really bring up the next generation of future business leaders. Yeah, do you want to answer the question from Troy?
Let me read that. Would those alternative pathways be automatically reviewed via UAC? Yes, so it would go through UAC. The application would then come to us. The personal statement essay would then come to us, and we would be reviewing them.
So let me just add a quick note here. So the important thing for students to know is that if they've applied, so there's sort of two things here, right? Like students can come in using the traditional prerequisites, and that's the sort of the direct path. If they're coming in without calculus, we will be able to admit them with the requirement that they complete that math 0009 that Howard was talking about. If they have none of the math prerequisites and they want to use that option 3 that's on your screen, that alternative pathway, then we definitely want to get them to that alternative pathway website so that they can submit that essay, which will get them in the mix for that additional assessment. So it sort of depends where the student finds themselves, but.
Thanks, Jen. Oh,
and Rhonda's email is in the chat there. So, trying to figure out which student is which and where they are in the path, Rhonda's your pro. She will help you figure out where your student is in the path.
And they can start submitting their essays as of December 1st. There'll be a link.
Awesome. Thanks so much all for sharing this morning and bringing the Sprout School of Business to our Guidance Counselor Forum. It's always exciting to hear what's happening and what's going on there. So those are our 3 highlights this morning, really 4. We've chatted about admissions and what that looks like right now. We introduced you to our Indigenous Recruitment Coordinator, Kate, who's also posted her email in the chat. We've chatted about the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and the BA Undeclared program, as well as environmental options. We've chatted about the Enriched support program and that alternative pathway to university, and the Sprout School of Business, their programs and the alternative options for admission. So that's a lot to cover. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, this is being recorded so that if you have questions or you want to go back or you're looking for resources, know that this will be posted in the coming days and you'll be able to refer back to that information later on. But we have lots of resources and information coming up in the future. Before I get into that, I'll let Jen answer the question that's come in and then we'll chat about what's coming up next.
Hi, Troy. Thanks for the question. So short answer is no, not really. But our ESP program is sort of the way that we make that happen for those students. And so ESP has a few different streams and a few different options. They have a science stream and a computer science stream and a business stream and an arts and social science stream and so on. And so they're really set up to help students who do not have the prerequisites sort of make that transition to a program here. But business is the first program that is doing that type of alternative pathway that Howard just described.
Awesome. Yeah, great questions this morning. And if you have any more, feel free to continue to ask those as we go. We're sticking around until 10, so we're happy to answer those. Before we maybe jump into some final questions, something that I like to highlight at the end of these sessions is that really we are starting and continuing the conversation with students all throughout the rest of the fall and into January. So know that we will be here to support students as they have questions, especially as we get close to that deadline. So coming up again this fall, we have a number of events. We are still doing general presentations. We're offering sessions on how to apply. We're also going to be offering some sessions that are open to ask anything, called Ask Us Anythings in December. We have our family night that's coming up on December the 9th. As well as another Q&A for you as guidance counselors on December the 10th. So that's a lot to keep track of, but they're all available on our website. So if you go to admissions.carleton.ca/events, you'll be able to see a list of all of our events there, as well as on our guidance counselor website, admissions.carleton.ca/guidance counselors. Everything that's relevant for you will be there, and we'll be reaching out in the coming weeks with some updates on these upcoming events so that you can connect students to those relevant events as they come up through the fall. One last event that I'll promote before we can answer some final questions and go from there is coming up also in that same week in December. On Tuesday, December the 7th, we have a science and sustainability event. So an interesting event for students considering science or who are interested in sustainability. Students can join us. It's also open. If teachers or guidance counselors would like to get more information on what's happening, it'll be a really interesting panel happening in the evening. Maybe I'll have my colleague Carly post a link to that event here in the chat. But we'll be reaching out with some more information on science and sustainability, the family night, and our final live Q&A for guidance counselors in the coming weeks. So don't worry about remembering all of this information. We're here to really help connect students with those. So what we can do is answer some final questions. If you have any, we'll stick around and do those. If your questions are answered and you feel good, things are covered, you're feeling confident going into these final months, thank you so much for joining us this morning, for taking the time, and really for being so dedicated and committed to your students. The work that you do is invaluable, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do without you. So on behalf of our team that's here, thank you so much. But we're here to answer any questions that you might have. So I see there's one in the chat there. I don't know if Jen, you want to take that one?
I think Rhonda got on. So Rhonda, are you going to answer the question in the chat, or would you like me to?
I was going to, but I think this is because I think they're asking about co-op and what the students need to maintain. I'll let you do that one.
Yeah, so Paula, your question is appropriately nuanced, and I appreciate that. So in terms of getting into co-op, as you know, we admit them with the co-op option when we admit them here through admission services. But in order for them to actually participate in co-op, they need to have a particular GPA in year 2 in order for them to actually participate in co-op. And so in general, they need a major CGPA of an 8. And they need 6.5. A major CGPA of 8 and an overall CGPA of 6.5 in order to participate. There's a few other nuances for them to be able to participate. They have to have completed a certain number of credits and so on. But in order for, if we're looking just at the average, then yeah, a major CGPA of an 8 and an overall of a 6.5. So an 8 on a Carleton 12 scale is a B. So that just gives you an idea of sort of where they need to be. In general, the co-op averages are usually, the average that students need to participate in co-op are usually somewhere between 8 and 9, depending on the program. The idea is that we want to send students on co-op who are coping well with their course load, and that they're able to take on that extra work. And so that's why we want their average to be in that nice solid kind of mid range, B plus, somewhere in that range. And of course, we also want to send our best students on co-op, because not everyone gets to go on co-op. And so we want to send our best students. I hope that answers your question.
Another great question. I know there's a lot going on. Your students have a lot of questions, so let us be here to help answer those. If that's this morning, great. Yeah, continue to use the chat, or you can raise your hand or unmute yourself. We're happy to do that. If they come up after today, know that you can also always reach out to us. Many of you will have received the invitation and the links for this from either Carly Glantz or myself. You can reach out to us, or you can always reach us at admissions@carleton.ca. You or your students, if anything comes up and they have questions, our team is here to help answer those. Yeah, Paula.
Hi, sorry, I have a lot of questions. The other thing I wanted to ask is about retention rate. I mean, I'm sure you are aware that a lot of students are readjusting to being back at school full time, and some of them are a little concerned about their ability to succeed at post-secondary when they get there. I'm wondering about what's the retention rate for programs like engineering and commerce in particular, because I know it's a little bit more difficult to go sideways than sometimes in a more general arts program. So retention rate, and are there initiatives, say if they totally flunk out, are there options for them to kind of pick it back up and stay in the program?
So in terms of retention rates, I don't have stuff per program in front of me, but in general, I mean, I think you're kind of talking about a couple of different things, right? You're talking about the general transition to university, which is typically difficult, and students do struggle with that. And we have so many student supports in place for students to be able to help them, to work with them through their program. You know, someone like Rhonda, who's doing, advising for 600 commerce students, as they come in, and helping them really work through their program. Rhonda's not alone. There are a lot of different people like Rhonda throughout the university helping students work through their program, because we know the adjustment is difficult, and we know that there is kind of a bit of a gap there from high school to university. I think though, Paula, what you're also talking about is the additional kind of adjustment issues that we've been dealing with over the last couple of years from COVID. And in truth, we don't really know yet. In terms of year-to-year retention and some of those other statistics, we haven't really seen the full picture yet, because, we have students who basically what they've done in order to cope is they've dropped down to part-time. So they're just taking fewer courses in order to be able to manage. Some students have postponed their post-secondary experience, and they're waiting until things are sort of fully back in person in order to be able to attend. And some students, frankly, are doing quite well. They prefer the online option. They're taking a full course load. They're ticking along. Life is good. But I think the important thing to remember is that we do have student supports for students to help them through their program. We're very good at it. We're one of the best in Ontario at student supports. But that said, that doesn't mean that this is the year for every student. There are going to be some students that are going to say, I'm not ready. I need to take a year off. I need to do my grade 12 year one more time in order to kind of get another pass on the courses and kind of fill in the knowledge gaps, because the online learning has been hard for me, or the weird kind of schedule has been difficult for me. So students are making all sorts of different choices based on where they think they are. I think they are, the students that I talk to are pretty savvy about when they realize, I don't think I'm ready. And so, don't think I'm ready could mean one more year in grade 12. It could mean a gap year. It could mean ESP. I think, Susan would probably say that ESP or IESP, the Indigenous Enriched Support Program, can help those students as well, with the transition. So if you remember the slide that Susan put up where students are taking, 3 courses plus they have the workshops and the facilitated instruction, that might be a way to help students make that transition if they feel like, this has been pretty shaky or things have gone sideways. So again, we're happy to kind of talk about all those options and figure out which one actually works for a particular student.
Yeah, and I'll just add that every year we have a few students who actually are admitted to a degree program but decide that they want to register with us for those additional supports because they are hesitant about like coming into university full on, and they just want that supported pathway.
And Paula, you still have your hand up. I don't know if that's because you have lots of questions or if that's like a legacy hand. Okay.
I guess the other thing is too the implications of part-time. If a student started and then decided to go to part-time partway through the year, are they able to stay in their program? What are the policies around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in general, students can always study part-time. There are some programs where, because of the way the course path is, they may end up needing to kind of talk to academic advising to figure out how to kind of stay on a course path. So you might have a program where a student takes fewer courses, let's say in the fall term, and they take fewer courses in the winter term, but there might be a sequence of courses where that particular course might only be offered in winter. So they might have to wait till the next winter in order to take it. But the academic advisors that work either in the faculties or in the General Academic Advising Center are excellent at helping students kind of map out their course path and figure out how to stay on time and still be in a part-time load. So, it is very common for students not to be in a 100% course load. It is much more common for students to be in an 80% course load, or sometimes, students in a 60% course load, which is what we consider part-time. So again, a lot of options. There are certain programs where studying part-time is much, much easier than others. So a program like the Bachelor of Arts, or Communication and Media Studies, or Cognitive Science, or frankly, even the Bachelor of Science are a lot easier to do on a part-time basis than the Bachelor of Information Technology or Engineering or something that's really specifically programmed like that. So it is a little bit dependent, but in general, students can study part-time. We understand that students can't always maintain a 100% course load. The one thing I will add, though, is that for students on OSAP, they need to research what that means for their funding, because of course they're not going to get full-time funding if they're registered part-time.
Amazing. Such great questions this morning. Thank you all for your participation, for asking those, and really for being the bearers of the relevant information for your students. It's great for us to know what their questions are, so that we can not only help you, but we can also help them. So feel free to direct students to us anytime if they have questions, or reach out yourself. We're happy to answer those. We can answer those over email. We are doing school visits, be that virtually and sometimes in person, as well as offering one-on-one applicant coffee breaks. So if students want to meet with a staff member or a current student and ask their questions, I posted a final link in the chat. It'll be the last one I share for this morning, with how to book a coffee break with someone from our office. So no coffee required, but a great way to get connected, and really to just have a safe space to ask their questions to someone who is really involved in a lot of these opportunities on campus. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know it's been a full morning, and I want to be respectful of your time with the amount of things that you have going on. So thank you so much for joining us this morning for our second guidance forum. I hope that the rest of your fall goes really, really well, and that students get their stuff done early so they decrease the amount of stress in January, but know that we will be here to support them the whole way through along the process. Even if it's the day before and they have questions, they can reach out to us anytime. We're happy to help. So have a great day, everyone. Happy Friday.